Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. As always, Monday nights are Abhijit nights, and here we have the man himself, Abhijit Iyer-Mitra I. Abhijit, well, Vetri well.
Very well.
And Vetri Veera well to you. How are things?
Well, they're as good as can be. I'm at my mom's home, so it's always nice.
Yes, indeed. Mom's cooking, and what more can we ask for, right?
No.
So let's first start about this snooping business. There was a Chinese vessel that was supposed to come port a dock at Hambantota. They had like 10 days. They said they were bringing some goods, and India looked at it with suspicion and said, "How can you do this? We have given you 25,000 crores to 36,000 crores, depending on who you're talking to." And Sri Lanka was sort of told to tell them to go away, and they managed to at least defer that visit. This is just the thing that we know. Overall, how good is India at knowing somebody is trying to look underneath the hood here?
See, my thing is very simple. What that ship can do sitting in Hambantota's, nowhere close to the Indian maritime border. That ship can come much closer to the maritime border, 12 nautical miles off your coast, and do a much better job of snooping.
Hmm.
So I really don't know what we achieved out here. So if you, Sachin, if you bring up a map of Hambantota's location in Sri Lanka, you'll see this.
Yeah. So
Can
while
you
he,
bring up?
yeah, he'll work on getting it. Sachin, can you please bring up Hambantota a map using Google Maps? So we can continue talking. It'll come up in a few seconds.
Yeah. So, if you convert nautical miles into kilometers, what is it? Let's just check.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, zoom out, please. So there is Hambantota. Now go slightly north. Yeah. So you see, if you look at 12 nautical miles off the coast, right, you're looking
Hmm.
at a very short strip of land adjacent to the coast, after which it becomes international water, and Chinese ships can do whatever the hell they want, right?
Right.
So what have we achieved?
Well, I don't know. I'm hoping you will give me the answer to that too. Or was there something
Nothing.
else?
Because the Sri Lankans for a long time they went on saying, Hambantota, first they told us to develop Hambantota. We said no. Then the Chinese came and developed it after the Sri Lankans gave us the first right of refusal. Okay. Then after the Chinese built it, we said, look, the Sri Lankans rather, they told us, look, Chinese military vessels, if they come there, it's fantastic for you because we'll give you rights to come into our territorial waters. You bring your submarine and keep it at the bottom of Hambantota Bay, and you pick up all the electronic signals of and acoustic signals of every single Chinese ship coming in. No, even there were difficult. So even when the Sri Lankans want to work for us and create a sort of intelligence trap where they bring in Chinese ships to get score brownie points for the Chinese, and they allow us to spy on those Chinese ships from very close by, giving us full access to their territorial waters. वो भी नहीं करोगे. So it's like a dog in the manger kind of a situation. Na karunga, na karne dunga kind of attitude.
This goes right back to a few months ago when there was a collision of a submarine of United States, which was watching the outlet of the Hainan Island, where supposedly almost all the submarines were docked off China. And China tried to knock this one off of its place, and in the process damaged that submarine. They were hoping that they'll be forced to bail out and they can take prisoners. That did not happen. The United States submarine limped to safety, I think to Guam, if I'm not wrong. In the process, the Chinese, I believe, they came in from below and hit it, and that got damaged, and
See,
that
that's
had to
bullshit.
travel.
I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Nothing of
So,
that
what is
sort
your
happened.
shit?
It hit a
What
it
is
hit
your
a
version of this
mountain.
stuff?
No, there is no version. It's very clear it hit a mountain. These things happen. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, oceans are notoriously difficult to map, right? Uh, it hit a thing. And mind you, if it had been injured anywhere near, or rather damaged anywhere near Hainan, a submarine is made very acoustically silent. Once that acoustic surface, this thing is blown, it becomes like like a symphony orchestra playing underwater.
Emitter.
So it could not have gone all the way from Hainan all the way to surface where it did, simply by and not create a racket in the process, alerting everyone around. So that's simply not a feasible situation. All right. It's just when you read the details of it, it just sounds like so much bullshit. It's not the way, it's the way Hollywood would depicts nuclear weapons, which we all know is crap. Like you look at Godzilla and how they try to nuke it. I can show you 100 different mistakes in it, starting from the process of, delegating nuclear command codes to the way the nuclear bomb is shaped. They'll actually show you transporting a missile head. You don't need the missile head to transport it for what they're doing. The actual nuclear bomb itself is a very different shape from what you guess is a conical, or whatever thing. So I don't buy that for a single minute. But do American submarines sit outside Hainan Island to listen? Hainan is not all Chinese submarines. It's just their ballistic missile submarines. And some of the submarines used to protect those ballistic missile submarines.
Well, they have been
Not
making
really
claims that they
protect,
have a range of
but
5,000 miles now, right? The ballistic submarines, the ballistics
the ballistic missiles on the submarines.
missiles. Yeah. No, sorry,
Yeah,
ballistic missiles. China has been
yeah,
making claim that they can go 5,000 miles, right?
sure. It's not a big achievement. Ballistics is something like a 70-year-old trick. I think, about 40, 50 years back itself, the Americans and the Russians had reached about 10,000 kilometers with ballistic missile, submarine, ballistic missile submarines. So if China has
Hmm.
reached it today, big deal. Why does that sound so incredible?
All right. So I think we are going into a specific instance now. Let's get back to the main problem. Does India know that it's been snooped upon? How successful is that?
The question isn't does India know if it's being snooped on? The question is, does India care if it's being snooped on? And the answer is no. Because counterintelligence is complete crap. All your senior babus are exempt for counterintelligence. All your senior military staff are exempt for counterintelligence, which is why you only get all these, second grade Tatpunjas, petty officers, and Lance Nayaks who ever get caught in any kind of espionage cases. Embassies in Delhi, you look at the array on their rooftops, you'll realize it's a full on spying thing, right? Uh, the only thing they don't have is direct line of sight to South Block or whatever. South Block doesn't even have electronic shielding. You
Hmm.
can literally, if you have some half decent equipment, you could literally listen into what happens, because the defense minister's office is in the front
North
corner
Block, I thought.
facing South Block. North Block
Okay.
is finance and home. South Block
Okay.
is defense and foreign ministry. And the
PM also sits
front,
in South Block, right?
no, he sits in a extension to South Block, after the foreign ministry. The foreign ministry is the part closer to Rashtrapati Bhavan. The defense ministry is the part away from Rashtrapati Bhavan. So the corner facing us, when we're looking towards Rashtrapati Bhavan, is where the defense minister's office is. It's ordinary glass. It's just ordinary glass. You can literally, if you had even basic audio snooping, like ordinary directives use, you can listen into what's happening in the defense minister's office. It's no big deal. How you would station a van out there with the collection to constantly listen, that's a different matter. But it's very easy to listen into what's happening. So, the Pentagon, for example, before 9/11, it wasn't visible, but they carried out extraordinary levels of reinforcement and armoring work on the Pentagon. And it was that reason that when the plane flew into the Pentagon, it should have normally been able to destroy the entire Pentagon. That kind of size and that amount of fuel should have acted as a huge bomb. It did not. Why? Because that particular section had been armored up and on the inside, and so it only destroyed that section, and it acted as a break from it destroying the other four guns of the Pentagon. So it destroyed only one gun. So it's like that. So it, we're extremely lackadaisical. Remember, we're a third world country. I don't know why anyone expects professionalism in any department from a third world country.
Well, I guess pigeon carriers do have their uses because there is no data going across. Of course, you could capture the pigeon and take the message out, put your own message, and send it along. That's always a possibility. But thanks for the
So
clarification, Abhijit.
they are the Israelis. The Americans employ extremely sophisticated methods against the Israelis, and the Israelis employ extremely sophisticated counter methods against the Americans. So what happened was, when this Obama Netanyahu relationship was going south, Obama issued an order to directly tap Netanyahu. So this naval officer who got posted to Tel Aviv, he had he was put up sorry, to Jerusalem. He was put up in a high rise, which had a direct view of Netanyahu's
Office.
offices. And they used a laser device, and this laser device is extremely sophisticated. It goes through glass, and it can tell you what is being said based on air disruption happening and how it disrupts the laser. Okay. And the Israelis figured that out. So they put shielding. They didn't even have to wait. They saw there is an American Marine out there. They set up, things to see if any light beams or anything were coming out of there. Now, see the light beam at the end, contrary to what you see in sci-fi movies, you don't always see that beam of laser traveling.
You don't.
It's
I know.
mostly
I know.
but yeah, that only happens in Star Wars. So Star Wars, Star Trek, or all of that. Sorry, those are photon torpedoes, but whatever. Phasers and photon torpedoes. But anyway, so what happens is they set up light detection devices, and sure enough, the light detection came on. And see, they didn't even wait for anyone. They didn't even wait for a tip off. They were on the thing, seeing where are all Americans, Russians, Chinese renting spaces, what has direct line of sight to any sensitive building. Then they set up light detection devices, and they found that one of them was indeed coming from this naval guy's thing. And they put the necessary
Shieldings. Yeah.
countermeasures and shieldings in place.
Well, I have worked with lasers, and I know they are not visible to the naked eye, and you cannot put your hand; it'll burn your hand. All you can do is there's a special paper that if you put it in the way of the laser, it'll start burning in just 2 or 3 seconds. Then you know that the laser is active. That's the only way to know that the laser is active. Of course, you can always turn it off. I'm just saying, if there's an active laser beam, that's how you find out. Thank you very much, Abhijit, and let's go to the questions now, please. Kanda Batata or Kanda Batata. Ask Abhijit, which countries will you never visit again?
Egypt. Where else? Turkmenistan. Iceland. Switzerland. Yeah, those would be countries I'd never go back to again.
Why
And if
Iceland
you
and
want to know
Switzerland?
why,
Yeah.
so Iceland is like literally the most boring place I've ever been to. Right? Everybody's like, oh, it's got amazing scenery, amazing scenery. You go there, it's like, theek hai, it's nothing great. Right? It's pretty expensive getting there. Right? Then why Turkmenistan? Because it's super boring. Except that one thing in the desert, the Darwaza, the gates of hell, as it's called, the Soviet gas experiment gone wrong, which is permanently on fire. It's just really boring. Like it's a wannabe North Korea. North Korea is much better in terms of leadership crazy. So yeah, so it was like quite ugh. Egypt, very simply because it's just horrible getting around. Everything is a nuisance. They're so aggressive in asking you for bakshish and things, trying to snatch your money. Literally, they'll try to snatch things away from you and things like that and all of that. It's just horrible. For all the glory of ancient Egypt, Egyptians really make it nasty for you out there. And what was the Switzerland? Because it's so bloody expensive. It's just not worth it. Austria is much prettier and much cheaper. Just go to Austria instead. The Alps are anyway much prettier in Austria than they are in Switzerland. And Geneva, like, it's literally you have to pay money to breathe air in.
All right. Mandar Karnik wants to know your comments on Tu-160 proposed strategic bomber lease.
Stupid from the get-go. Just like the Tu-22. Initially, we were meant to rent 4 Tu-22s. That was also a really dumb idea. There is nothing you can do with a Tu-6. What are you going to use it for? There's no way it's too big a plane to evade radar and get through to Shanghai or Beijing for a bombing run. You're not exactly going to use it to carpet bomb anything. So what are you going to use it for? Nuclear weapons? Well, you already have cruise missiles and ballistic missiles which can do it much better with a lot less risk and a lot less cost. A ballistic missile costs a fraction of what a Tu-160 would cost. You're not putting 4 crew members at risk. The Tu-60 will take about 2-3 hours to do, to go there and bomb. Well, 6 hours technically to go there, bomb, and then come back, even at supersonic speed. Because a lot of it will have to be under the radar, flying at subsonic speeds. Your missiles can do in 9-10 minutes, one-way trip. So why do you want it? There are lots of these stupid proposals. This is not out of the box thinking. This is indisciplined, bad thinking. Pressure for out of the box thinking results in some of the worst indisciplined thinking you can get. Indisciplined and stupid thinking. Remember, the plane itself is about 30-40 years old. It debuted in the 80s. Yeah.
Possibly.
So you're looking at
Yeah.
1980s technology. You're looking at 1980s technology and even there it's not very stealth. Huh? So how exactly are you going to protect this plane? The Chinese have air defense systems that are a whole generation, Russian air defense systems that are a whole generation after Tu-160. They have the 400, which is 15-20 years old, compared to the Tu-160, which is... So what are you going to do with it?
All right. Next question, please. Kanda Batata again. What did the ancient Greeks gain from interaction with Indians?
Just one quick Tu-160s for taking out ships. You must be mad. You don't need a Tu-160 to take out ships. The Tu-160 is going to light up all kinds of radars and satellite-based tracking, which you really don't want. So this whole Russian concept of supersonic maritime strike, it's fantastic for big-ass missiles. You don't need missiles of that size. You already have the BrahMos, which can be carried on the Sukhoi. What are you going to do with the Tu-160? And already your BrahMos can now, after MTCR, after we joined MTCR, can go out about 700-800 kilometers. So what are you exactly using it for? How dumb. Sorry, question, Kanda Batata.
Yeah, Kanda Batata's question was, what did the ancient Greeks gain from interaction with Indians?
I honestly don't know.
Well, weren't they using the Roman alphabets for numbers before India came along with 1, 2, 3, 4 to 0?
No, the Greeks used Greek alphabets. They didn't use Roman alphabets.
Oh, I see. Alpha, lambda type. Okay.
Yeah. But the Greeks did not take Indian numerals. In fact, Indian numerals Indian numerals are called Arabic numerals for a reason. Europe refused to adopt Indian numerals. till the Arabs slowly started. And even there, it took a long time before Europe adopted. It was only in the 1400s and 1500s that they started adopting Indian numerals.
Hmm. Mandar Kanik wants to know, is the main problem with the Congress party that it has fallen prey to the woke ideology of the global left?
No, the main problem of the Congress party is that it is ruled by Rahul Gandhi. Okay, there's this saying about the Borgias of Florence. The father makes it, the son uses it, and the grandson loses it. In this case, you pass the grandson to the great grandson, so it's double losing it. Rajiv Gandhi lost it, right? But the great grandson seems to be intent on double losing it. So the Congress party has not fallen prey to it. Remember, there are lots of Congress people who are some of the smartest people I know, much smarter than anyone in the BJP or possibly even the collective cabinet combined. But they are ruled by an extremely, uh, I won't say he's a stupid child, but he's a child who has never known accountability for any of his actions since the day he was born. He's had that typical European upbringing where you're shielded from consequences of your actions. And he's been given this sense of infallibility. So it's the arrogance of being born to an Indian ruling family with the lack of consequences born to a European upbringing. So it doesn't matter what, he is just fundamentally incapable of accountability, and his coterie around him shields him from any negativity. That is the problem of the Congress, and that forces the rest of the Congress, for the sake of promotions and things, to uh, parrot whatever Rahul says. That is the problem. The problem is Rahul Gandhi. There's no intrinsic problem with the Congress, except that now, because of what this boy has done over the last 15 or so years to the Congress, the organization has left them. Tomorrow, if they want to revitalize in UP or revitalize in Maharashtra or revitalize in Madhya Pradesh or whatever, where is the organization left? And once an organization has left you, you don't have the ability to build it up from scratch again, because then you have to invent a whole new platform to energize people and bring them together and create an organization. See, it's very easy to take on an existing organization. It's very difficult to build up a new one. So that's the problem.
Lone Wolf TV wants to know, according to you, what mindset of Indian population annoys you the most? Which has to change? Where do I begin?
What annoys me the most? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. There's so much. Mostly there's MC/DC galis waiting at the back of my tongue, which I'm holding back. But see, just off the top of my head, I'm not categorizing it. One would be this thing that everything good originates in India, or that India was somehow superior to everyone and everything else. The second is that somehow India is more valuable to the US than the US is to India. The third is this belief that we have something unique to offer someone. We really don't. So it's this, I guess, overall, when you say mindset, Lone Wolf, it's this notion that we're somehow the Indian equivalent of manifest destiny, or this Indian exceptionalism, if you want to call it that. I'm using American terms, manifest destiny and exceptionalism. But there's nothing remotely exceptional about us, and there's no destiny that is manifest for us.
There was a time when US used to think no end of themselves. They basically stole Panama from Colombia. I don't know if it was after or before the canal was finished, but if you look at the debates in the Senate, one senator says, "We stole it fair and square. What are they complaining about?" That's the kind of mindset that used to exist. Next question, please.
Well, I
Are you
mean,
there?
I'm
Yeah.
just
Okay. Wow.
next.
I've got him at a loss of
Next
words.
question,
Loss for
please.
words. Lone Wolf again. Why is it that young population
No, I
idolize?
this.
थोड़ा gap हो रहा है आज. There's a little bit of a gap. Okay, next question.
Because oh no, my mom's internet isn't the best.
Lone Wolf TV says, why is it that the young population idolize TikTokers and celebs, wherein they should be idolizing Adani, Tata, and Ambani? While you stay in Australia, did the youth there as well idolize celebrities?
Yes, in Australia, in America, even in Austria and Moscow, where I've lived as a kid, they did idolize celebrities. They did idolize them because remember, only 10% of your population at most, usually it's between 2 to 7% of your population, depending on how much you invest in a population, tends to be of an intellectual mindset. The remaining are bred for manual labor. This is human evolution. Industrialization is a very new thing. I mean, we've discussed this while discussing wokery and things. So for the remaining 97%, I'm sorry, 93 to 98% of your population, their thing is with fame. It is not the path to fame, it is just the fame. So when you find that some TikToker has lots of followers, or some celeb is very famous, you tend, the most natural thing that is, it is uniform to human beings across the world. Wherever you go, it is not unique to India. So in Australia as well, I've seen it. I mean, I've never been to a country which idolizes even Israel. Even Israel, they will idolize Gal Gadot any day over some guy who's discovered something totally new. Like, the guy who came up with the new desalination process that revolutionized water for Israel? I don't. Nobody in Israel does either. But do they know Gadot? Yes, they do. It's that simple.
Simple Life wants to know, how similar were the Huns and Mongols? Some people say Huns never attacked India and Shweta Hunos are not Huns. Is it true?
Look, the Huns they went a single race. From everything I've been reading, all the latest stuff about the Huns seems to indicate that they were an agglomeration. They were a steppe agglomeration which took on lots of other tribes and things like that, and they were a truly multicultural, multi-ethnic state. The similarity we will never know because we have never come across Hun graves. We don't even have Hun accounts of themselves. What we know of the Huns is what the enemies wrote about them. There are no, I mean, even in India,
Historians?
Toramana and Mirakula, we don't have any accounts of them by themselves. It's what other people say about them. Archaeological evidence, as in archaeoanthropo evidence of skeletons and things like that, zero. So how are we to tell? So this is all basically conjecture. But there is something to be said that as a rule, remember, the joke in the Cold War used to be that it was our Russian Germans versus our Nazis versus your Nazis, or our Germans versus
Yes,
your
yes,
Germans.
yes.
Because the American
Yeah, yeah.
space program was started by Werner von Braun, who was Hitler's thing. And most of the Russian discoveries were also made by German scientists that the Russians had captured. So what happened was that the Mongols, when they fought the Turks in Central Asia, it was our Turks versus your Turks, because most of the Mongol army, foot soldiers, well, even cavalry soldiers, were mostly Turks. Only the elites were Mongol. So even with the Huns, so the Mongols, even the Turks have this thing of agglutinating tribes. The Mongols used to do that a lot. They were not racist in that sense. Ethnic steppe people cannot afford to be, because they live on the cusp of starvation or death. So, there's always security in numbers, so you keep absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. So, in that, they're actually quite similar to the Mongols if going by historical accounts. And the Shweta-Hunas, well, boss, I mean, I've heard lots of etymology about Toromana and Mihirakula. If they called themselves Hunas, which is the only thing we know, were they, no idea, but steppe migration, it's very natural for the same family to go in completely different directions. You look at the Bulgars are originally a Mongol tribe. They're from central Russia, technically. The Magyars, Hungarians, are also Mongols. So technically, Bulgars are Mongols, Magyars are Mongols. Ethnically, they are. I mean, they look white now, but originally they were Mongol blood. So it's very hard to tell. Shweta-Hunas may very well have been Mongols. No, no way of telling. Or Mongol-related tribes, because remember, even the Turkic Mongol split is a very tenuous one. Uh, the modern definition of what separates a Turk and a Mongol is religion. The moment a Mongol accepts uh, Turkicness, Islam, he becomes kind of Turkic in that sense. Because the language is very similar. It's Turco-Mongol, technically. So the Mongol word for lake, Tso, like Pangong Tso, the lake in Ladakh where we're fighting the Chinese. So in modern Turkish, as in Turkish, water is Su. So same thing. There's lots of linguistic similarity. They used to worship the same gods, completely intermarriageable. So lots of things like that.
Sid Dave wants to know, I have read Huns converted to Hinduism and became Jatts Rajputs. Is there proof for it? Also, were the Greeks the first one to build images of Buddha, Hindu gods? Is there historic truth to it?
Mm, so you should really listen to or go subscribe to Razib Khan's Substack, because he'll tell you that Jats and Rajputs, we don't know the origins. Huh? It's Rajput origins and their ethnic markers of Rajput uniqueness are virtually non-existent. They're a very mixed people. So if they claim that they are unique, they're not. Jats are unique, but there's a lot of admixture to their blood. Okay, in fact, the Roma of the Gypsies of Europe, they are a Jat tribe, essentially, of some sort. But is it Hun? There is some Turkic admixture in them, Turco-Mongol admixture, but it's mostly Central Asian, ancient Central Asian herder, uh, pastoralist. Rajput, very different bloodline. Rajput and Jat bloodlines are apparently very, very different. The proof for it is very controversial, because the only proof we have for these genotypes comes from Indian populations in America, because the Indian government doesn't allow you to genetically classify them. They've always stalled this project for the last 20, 30 years. They've not allowed you to collect genetic samples and things like that. So if it's done, it's done in a very non-representative way. The only studies that have been done have been of Indian populations that have migrated to America. And based on all this DNA testing and things like that, websites and so on and so forth, been doing it. And see, again, it's a fairly decent representative sample, but it needs to be broad based to tell. So, again, what I'm saying also, there's a bit of a methodological question mark on it. Were the Greeks the first to build images of the Buddha? No, they were not. We have images of the Buddha from before that in slightly different styles, but it was generally taboo. I think they're the ones that broke the taboo on large scale production of Buddha images. Because before that, the Buddha was never represented physically. He was represented as a lotus or an elephant, or the feet were represented, and he was never represented. It was almost like Muhammad in that sense. But the Greeks were the one that gave large-scale acceptance to his anthropomorphic representation. But Hindu gods, I am yet to come across a Hindu statue, the statue of a Hindu god, that predates from the BC era. We have
Next question,
no,
please.
I have seen no record. Shri, have you seen any record of a Hindu god being depicted as statue or anything from the BC period?
From the BC period, I've seen coins. I have seen coins
I've seen coins,
from
but coins are
yeah.
not gods.
No, but then they
Coins are not
depict
gods.
Balarama, Krishna, they depict Rama, they depict Lakshmana,
I have
that
not
sort of
seen,
stuff.
no, I've never seen a Balarama Krishna from a BC period.
I have. In fact, I
I've
have
never
a
seen
book.
that.
Let's do this. While I read the next question, I'll go get the book and I'll try and see if I can show you guys a picture of the Balarama coin with Krishna. So, yeah, let's go to the next question. I'll ask the question and then I'll go get the book. Mr. Lee wants to know, how complex would it be for the US to transplant the entire TSMC fab capacity from Taiwan to USA with green cards for the employees? TSMC brought 92 ordered EUVs from ASML till 2023.
Haven't I told you don't use abbreviations? What is TSMC, EUV,
Taiwan
ASML?
Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. That is,
Why would they want to do that? It's
Lee, you
Taiwan.
are a semiconductor guy. I can see that. You are a semiconductor guy. You're asking question to Abhijit about something that probably he is a little bit out of depth on. So,
No, but the only thing I know is Taiwan manufactures its own semiconductor chips. Okay. I know for a fact because every time we sit down with the Taiwanese, they tell us and we complain to them that you're selling semiconductors to China. They tell us, look, the semiconductors we sell China are not our top shelf stuff. There are certain technologies which we will never share with China. On the one hand. Second, as I understand with Taiwan, they mostly own most of the processes themselves. So where would the US get to transplant that to India, boss? I still don't understand.
see what has happened in the past, Abhijit. There's a bit of history to what he's saying. Many times, what the US did was from the Midwest, from the East, all the things that were doing manufacturing labor-intensive company products, they dismantled them brick by brick and then took it by
See,
ship
Shri, I
to.
understand that. I understand that. That is not my question. That is American technology to share. Who is
Right.
America to share Taiwanese technology?
Well, here is a thought process here. The TSMC is 80% owned by people who don't live or who don't belong to Taiwan. The owners are outside. So a good chance that the owners of TSMC are the very companies that started outsourcing their
But
chip
remember,
production.
Shri, you know this better than anybody else. It doesn't matter who the owners are. The ownership of a product of a company based in Taiwan belongs to Taiwan. Okay, the
Now he has a
constituent shareholders can't take, it doesn't automatically go back to the constituent owners.
This is a good question, Abhijit, for the simple reason that you do need to do what he's suggesting. If US is serious, they are trying to build 3 fabs in the United States now. One in Arizona, one I think in Oregon. I don't remember the third one, but you can see both these places, Arizona and Oregon, are where Intel is, having a huge presence, like the CPU of Intel. The design of the CPU takes place in US, Israel, and perhaps even in Bengaluru, some parts. But the final product, the IP, belongs to the Intel company in the United States, and that's where the most complicated CPU gets built. I'm not talking about what you're seeing in the market today. I'm talking about the one that you're going to see 5 years from now. You see, so in a way, what he's
Yeah,
saying
so
is
this
right
is
because,
so again, my question is this: what does the US have to do with this?
well, okay,
US can't decide to take a Taiwanese manufacturing thing and put it in India or USA
no,
or
not in
wherever.
India, not in India, in USA. Yeah,
I
taking
know
it back.
wherever they don't get to do that because eminent domain applies out here, no?
Yeah, the self-preservation also for TSMC. So there's a little bit more nuance there than what we are saying. See, TSMC has built expertise building chips. That is not available in the US because the US turned off its switch 15, 20, 30 years ago on semiconductor fab and all the physics that goes around it. The basic equipment tools, which is what he's saying, EUV from ASML. ASML is a Dutch company that actually gives you a way to fabricate, like write the connections between two different nodes on a chip. Okay, so that is the
I've heard.
fundamental
And the
tool you need.
machines they have no printers. They've got these 8 printers, semiconductor printers or something like that, which
Yeah, so
nobody else can replicate that. It's a very unique Dutch technology.
yeah. Hey, Mr. Lee, you should see some of my semiconductor based videos. I've explained to some extent about what EUV lithography is, how complicated that is, and so on and so forth. So there are two sides here. Unless you give the latest tools to TSMC, they can't make the chips that can be even smaller with even more power. Right? So it's a yin and yang. So we have to see how that plays out. Next question, please. Abhishek wants to know how a multicultural society is different from a single cultural society in terms of social trust, tolerance, and violence.
Mm. See, it's a very difficult question to answer because, see, multiculturalism is a very new concept. Okay, previously, multicultural was never an issue. Okay, in the past, if you look at it, when we say multicultural and stuff like that, a northern Egypt and southern Egypt, what is called Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt is actually the south, and Lower Egypt is actually the north. I know it doesn't sound right, but they had very different cultures, but they absorbed each other completely into one. You look at different cultures of Sumeria and Mesopotamia. Sumeria is southern Mesopotamia essentially. They had very different cultural these things, but they kind of absorbed into one whole quite easily. So when you talk about things like social trust is something, it's a very modern construct. It's a post-industrial age thing because before that, it's very hard to classify social trust. Okay. Tolerance, on the other hand, is not based on multiculturalism or uniculturalism. It's based more on a mindset of the religion that you have. As a rule, polytheists are generally much more tolerant. And violence is based entirely on resource competition. Okay. So it's just very, very hard to put all these three in terms of multicultural and single cultural society unless you narrow down a very specific 10 to 100-year time frame specifically. Next.
I'm getting to it. I have the book here and I'm looking at the coins. I'm trying to see the one that I promised you. That is Balarama and Krishna. I'm getting there. Just give me a few minutes. So let's go to the next question. Rhaegar wants to know, I'm a financial crime analyst in Sydney. What future career options can I pursue globally with the ultimate aim of coming back to India in 7 to 8 years? He wants to retire early.
I always support early retirement. I think I'll retire in about 4 or 5 years from now because I think I've made enough. But look, Rhaegar, I don't think you have a future in India at any rate. Okay, because the only person who will be using your offices might be enforcement directorate, if at all that, because even enforcement directorate tends to be extremely crude and obsolete in its methodologies. And do you really want to become a government employee? So I doubt very much that there are many career options out here. But since you're a financial crime analyst, I would say that your only options are abroad. I would say specifically places where financial crimes do occur, or at least the auditing of that happens in countries that are very serious about tracking down tax evasion, or things like financial crime. India is not serious about financial crime. We're a post crime fix it, as opposed to in crime catch it mode that America and some Western countries employ. So I'd say outside of London or America, specifically New York, you might not have many opportunities outside of that. And India, forget about it. There is no future. I've seen several people who claim to be forensic accountants and things like that who have come to India to specifically, in the not in the Rafale case, but in the things related to Augusta Westland, some of which overlapped with Rafale, and ED and Co had no use for them. So no.
All right, we'll take a break. I'm going to show you some coins of different kings. Bactrian kings tended to have coins where one side was Greek lettering, the other side was Brahmi. And I have here King Agathocles, and he was in the 1st century BCE. He claims descendancy from Alexander the Great, and he issued 2 series of coins. I'm going to show you, here is one set where, I don't know if I can you guys see it? Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Can you read the text below? Balarama on one side, Krishna on the other side.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if it's Balaram and Krishna, but the iconography is definitely Indian.
Yes. So this is the book, Dharma Yoga by Padma Bhushan Dr. Nagaswamy. It's available in Chennai. And I will send you the details if you want to pick up this book. This is worth its weight in gold, Abhijit. And you can even order it online. It will come to you. So this is by, like I said, I knew Dr. Nagaswamy very well. And we have had a couple of hangouts also on this. And I'll also show you one more, and then we can go back to questions.
So it was which king? Agatha?
Agatha. Agatha, like an Aunt Agatha. Cleus, Agathocles.
Agathocles of Bactria.
185 to 170 BCE. Okay, and then right after that comes Kunin. One second, I'll tell you. This is Rama and Lakshmana on the same side of the coin. Just one second.
Yes, you can go to the Wikipedia page, and they have a lot of his coins.
Yeah. There's a fair. These are all from British museums mostly, and there are also museums in India that carry these coins. Amazing stuff that we have, and we didn't know these things existed. So, one of the earliest uses of swastika, 2nd, 3rd century BCE. You guys can see the swastika clearly, right? Right there.
Where?
Right there. My finger.
Can't see.
You can't see the swastika here? No. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. Just one second.
Why don't you turn it towards yourself, put your finger on the swastika, and then turn it around?
Okay. That is true. You've done this more than I have. See that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, this is 2nd, 3rd century BCE. So I've used this to prove the fact that swastika has been around for ages. Anyway, so there you go. Thank you. That's even better.
Perfect.
All right, guys. So we have the proof. We've been keeping quiet. Time to open our mouths and start talking about all these things. Next question, please.
So that would actually buttress the point that was brought up, that it was the Greeks that started the depiction of Hindu gods.
Yes. Well, Bactria, I don't know if you can call them Greeks, but they had, blood going back to Alexander's time. You're right.
Look, but it doesn't matter ethnically. The thing is...
Okay, this is Balarama. This is Balarama and Krishna. See the chakra? Left-hand side is chakra, Krishna.
Hmm.
One
So,
side is
but does
yeah.
it
Go
say
ahead.
Balarama or Krishna?
No, no. You have to decode it. It does say everything is done in this book. This book has got
What does it
all the
what does
details.
it say on the what does it say on the sides? Because could you bring up the script again? I just need to look at the
Yeah. I actually
ये
that is
ये
not enough.
ये
You need to
ये
read
क्या
the.
script है? This is not. This is
This is
oh yeah,
this
I can see.
on the left hand side is
Hold
Greek.
on.
On the right hand side is Brahmi. Brahmi, precursor
अच्छा.
to what is.
But none of these say. Well, I don't know what the Brahmi says, but from what little I can read of Greek, it doesn't say Balarama or Krishna.
All right. So somebody has decoded it for us. Yeah, here. Just below that is a text. Coin of King Agathocles with Balarama on one side and Krishna on the other side with Brahmi script. That's what the
No, no. See, they may say anything. The question is, what does the coin actually say?
no. Look, he was the only
See, the
person I
thing
know
is,
who could read Brahmi.
we tend to have this thing of projecting what we want to see onto things.
I
Okay,
understand
Mortimer Wheeler
where you're
wants to
coming
see
from.
an invading Aryan in Harappa, so he sees it. Somebody wants to see Balarama and Krishna in something, so they see it. But does the coin say Balarama or Krishna? Because it could
Look,
be a depiction of anything. See,
and
as a rule,
I'll get
the
you.
Greek
I'll get you the
coin.
proof. In fact, how long are you in
Okay,
Chennai? How long are you in Chennai?
till the 12th.
Okay, so that today is 8th, right? Okay. Let me see if I can get you to meet somebody. Dr. Naga Aswami's daughter. She is the one who put together all these coins.
Okay,
She lives in your neck of the woods, Besant Nagar.
okay, okay.
So if you want to really go and meet, she may have books. She will have books, in fact. I'm sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to you. If you have time one afternoon, go meet
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
She's a very charming person. She'll give you all the
Sure.
answers to your questions. You can spend
Oh, yeah.
some time also. Let me see if I can get it together for you. I'm leaving
Hmm.
for anyway. All right. Next. Vamsi, question to both of you. 10 positive and 10 negatives of this government, of which 2 positives and negatives each from economy, defense, foreign
Vamsi,
affairs.
we've discussed this before. We've discussed this before. We can't keep doing this every time somebody asks us a question.
Not much has changed.
Go back to the earlier episodes. Go back to the earlier
Yeah.
episodes and check them.
And Chaitanya Naidu wants to know, will the US ever wind up its counter-terrorism bureaucracy created in the aftermath of 9/11 attacks? Clearly, the Pakistani army continues to be a key beneficiary of this bureaucracy even after US withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Look, bureaucracies by their very nature are never wound up. You know, in India, we have a joint secretary Kuwait.
Hmm.
There's a joint secretary Kuwait who was created only for evacuating Indians out of Iraq when Iraq tried to
Kuwait.
annex
Yeah.
Kuwait. The annexation is ended. Kuwait is independent. Iraq has changed government 3, 4 times since then. But the joint secretary continues because it is one more joint secretary post. Okay, so bureaucracies are never dismantled. They are self-justifying and self-perpetuating. The Pakistani army does not continue to benefit because of this. The Pakistan army continues to benefit because of a nuclear bureaucracy, not because of a counter-terrorism bureaucracy. The nuclear bureaucracy, in fact, it is the counter-terrorism bureaucracy that has very often wanted to go hard on Pakistan, and it has always been the nuclear bureaucracy that says, but they have nuclear weapons. Can we actually prevent nuclear weapons from getting into the hands of terrorists if the Pakistani state collapses? They are the ones that hold back and actually benefit the Pakistani state. You will actually see, if you go to my Twitter timeline, I had quoted Christopher Clary. Christopher Clary does a lot of this, he telegraphs a lot of this American nuclear bureaucracy desire to not go hard on Pakistan simply because they have nuclear weapons. And it's the same story again. Oh, we can't afford Pakistan to fail. We have to give them aid because otherwise their nuclear weapons will get into terrorist hands. So you're targeting the wrong bureaucracy, boss.
Next question, please. Chaitanya G again. If fighter jets become electric, hydrogen or battery, how will it impact stealth capabilities?
Heat emission. Uh, I still don't know how it would actually. I don't know how you would have an electric jet engine, because half the fun is, taking the air burning fuel in between, and for that blast force generated to kind of propel you in front. One of the things that I suspect that could be done is, Dyson fans and Dyson vacuum
Yeah,
cleaners and all of that, which is, uh, can you get to that stage where you can actually take in as much from air from your surroundings without burning fuel and things like that, transform it into a blast big enough for it to propel you at supersonic speeds and things like that? I would personally say we're very, very far away from that. I've literally never seen anyone discuss something like that, even because remember, even modern propellers are turbojets. They're actually pushing a little jet engine inside. You don't realize this. It's the modern engines like GE on a 787 and things. The most of the thrust is not generated by that pencil uh, original jet engine in the spine in between. It drives the big fans which generate most of the thrust. So modern so-called jet engines are technically kind of, I would say, they're propeller engines, weirdly enough. And the propeller engines of today are just that you don't see the cowling around the things kind of thing. I don't know if it's possible. I would suspect the amount of electrical energy required to create that much of a that much thrust to move the aircraft forward would be outside our capabilities. But assume tomorrow, in the future, you have something like a Dyson, which without any heat or whatever just takes in the air, expands it, and pushes it out from the back enough to create supersonic thrust. The primary advantage you then have is heat. Right now, the most potent sensor on the F-35, more than its radar, is something called the DASS, the Distributive Aperture Subsystem. And what it is it's an 360-degree infrared sensor which counters stealth aircraft by, okay, so even the radar of the F-35 is an X-band radar. Okay, it's not that stealth can't be detected. Stealth can be detected by L-band radars. Now let me explain L-band, C-band and X-band to you. L-band radars are very long wavelength. So, it's like, when you're hitting the piñata, you're like blindfolded and you're doing this kind of thing. And suddenly you find the doll hanging and then you bash the living daylights out of it. That's an L-band. A C-band is slightly smaller wave, so it's better resolution. X-band is literally like a blind artist who feels up your face and can produce an exact replica. Now, what an L band can detect, an X band mostly can't detect, and so on and so forth. The F-35 is optimized for X band stealth. So an L band can actually detect it. The problem comes in the kill loop, wherein an L band can detect it, but your missiles can't function in the L band. They can only function in the X band. So a long range radar will detect it, but for it to transmit that information to the fighter, which has an X band radar, and the missile, which also has an X band radar, it won't be able to detect it because it's X band stealth optimized, the F-35. So how the now it still hasn't solved the missile problem. The Israelis have solved that with something called the David Sling. It's only a surface to air missile, but it combines both radar, image, and IR seekers. So that's one solution to get over this kill loop. But what the F-35 does is it correlates the radar image with the IR image. Now, one thing that no plane can truly mask, no high performance plane can truly mask, is their IR emissions from that jet blast coming out of the back of the plane. And it detects that. and it correlates it with radar information, and it directs the radar to do increased searches. I think only 1 or 2 planes can actually mask their rare emission. 3 planes that I know of. One is the F-22. So if you guys Google the F-22, uh, uh, what happens is you will see that the exhaust is square in shape. And that increases the surface area, because remember, the area of a circle is what? 2 pi r.
Yeah.
So for the
No, pi
same
r square. Circumference
pi
is
r
2 pi
square.
r. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Pi r square. So what happens is pi is anyway 3, well, what, 3 point what?
3.1415 something something something. 22 over 7.
Right. 22 by 7. Exactly. 22 by 7. So it is a fraction of a square of the same radius. So you take a circle of a defined radius, pi r square, and you make the exhaust the square. It increases the surface area, and more surface area means that same heat is being spread over a greater surface area. It will cool quicker. Like, you know how if you cook in a deep saucepan, it's going to stay hot for longer than when you pour it out onto a plate or something where greater surface area means it cools quicker. Like soup or anything, if you serve it in a soup plate, it's going to cool quicker than if you serve it in a cup, essentially. So what happens is, uh, uh, the F-22 is a classic example. Then I want you to Google the YF-23. That was even more sophisticated. What it did was it had the square exhausts, but it also had a long tunnel that was full of heat ablating tiles that would dissipate more and more of the heat. Plus the sides, the vertical stabilizers of the aircraft, they also shielded from side view and from bottom view. So the canals, the vertical stabilizers, all of that, they all shielded the exhaust. So that was some very intensive uh, uh, exhaust treatment that was given. The F-22 did less of exhaust treatment. The most exhaust treatment that you see in all of this is in the B-2 bomber. Okay, you will see these basins with heat ablating tiles and things. But remember, the B-2 doesn't go supersonic. So the amount of thrust required, you look at the thrust of the B-2 engine, it's not that much. It's actually quite minuscule compared to what the F-23, F-22, and F-35 have, because it's not supersonic, right? It just cruises at high subsonic, this thing. So it was easier in a sense to shield. But that is your big flaw in stealth. It's the jet exhaust. And that is what electric things will do. Hydrogen, I don't really know, because I don't know what the fuel fraction. I've not seen a prognosis for hydrogen fuel fraction being better than regular things. I've not even looked it up. So I'll look it up. I'll see. But I don't think hydrogen solves that basic problem. Yeah, well, we can do another 30 minutes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Abhijit. Next question, please. We're scrambling to get the questions out. Let me ask you, there's one that is low-hanging fruit. I'm just going to ask you that. David the Goliath wants to know, why is the contribution of Brahmins to Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism played down by leftists? Major disciples of Buddha were Brahmins. All Buddhist scriptures were written by Brahmins. Brahmins also launched the Bhakti movement.
Were they all Brahmins though?
Well, where I think where they all, we don't
castes.
know. I think it's a little difficult to say that every one of them was, but definitely somebody who had Jnana was considered a Brahmin.
Look, Buddha was a Kshatriya.
Yes,
Buddha himself was a Kshatriya. Jains, do we really know what caste they were before they became Jains?
No idea. Mahavira,
I don't.
More, I think education was probably what, 1% of the population at that time that you could read and write, right? I mean, the literacy was not that great.
The literacy in those days was abysmal.
Right. So only those who could afford it could read and write. Yeah.
Curiously, very strangely, apparently around the 1400s, the most so-called literate society, the only society with universal adult education, were the Aztecs. They had universal adult education. All kids had to go to state schools, except they were illiterate. They didn't have a script. So, yeah. So that was that. Hmm.
Did the Aztecs have the wheel?
No, no pre-Columbian civilization had the wheel.
That's amazing, isn't it? That they built all these tall buildings without the wheel.
Yeah,
Amazing,
and
amazing.
obviously without even rollers.
Hmm.
So, quite interesting. They were essentially a Stone Age civilization. They were a Neolithic civilization. They knew how to work copper, but they never really used copper in tools or copper or bronze in tools or anything like that.
Have you been to Konark Temple?
Yeah, duh. I went to jail
Oh
because
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
Konark
yeah. I
Temple.
forgot. Did you notice that the stones are actually fused by molten iron?
No, I did not.
Oh, take a magnet next time. Go to any of
Okay.
those pillars. It'll just bloop, it'll just go and catch it. It is, you can see it. It's molten iron that is poured between rocks to hold them together. Amazing stuff.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I
You
David the
were looking
Goliath.
at
No,
somewhere else.
yeah. So no, I was looking at things. I mean, the guide was explaining a lot of things, but the guide never pointed out this.
Okay,
He
okay.
did say something like the chakra on top used to revolve and things like that, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
I don't see how it would have revolved, but whatever. But no, look, why is the contribution played down by leftists? What's preventing you from playing it up? I mean, it is played down, but lots of people contributed to these religions. So I don't understand what the point of it is.
All right. Next question. Any updates on Bharadwaj Speaks from Sandeep?
Well, look, Twitter has been going on asking for adjournment after adjournment after adjournment. They're basically abusing the process. So I'm taking them to court for locking me out. I'm also impleading Mighty and the Commerce Ministry in my petition, saying that Twitter is criminally manipulating the marketplace and they are abusing the process. So we will also be seeking contempt against Twitter for abuse of process. But that only indirectly affects Bhardwaj Speaks because uh, what we're trying to allude to is the fact that in that particular case, Twitter has been asking and the judiciary has been giving, allowing Twitter to go on postponing it.
Well, let's see if this puts some pressure on them to actually not allow this Tariq pe Tariq stuff. Sandeep again is India's best option popcorn. If World War III happens with US plus NATO plus Taiwan plus Israel versus Russia plus China, what about Japan, Pakistan?
Hey, what popcorn?
Popcorn is eat and then watch the whole thing happen in front of you. Play neutral.
Yeah, yeah, India will only do popcorn only. India is not going to get dragged. Boss, this is one thing we have to thank our politicians for. They will not let us get dragged into any war. Okay, so World War III happens. I look, the point of a world war is you look at world wars. Nobody saw them coming. Literally, nobody saw them coming. Even the people who tell you that it wasn't the old theory, which is that Europe stumbled into war, which still, by the way, it's not a discredited theory. They still won't tell you that people knew what they were getting into. Either the First or the Second World War, they didn't know what they were getting into. Miscalculation, bad calculation, call it what you will. So we really can't tell how these things play out. And I would say that Israel would also be sitting on the side eating popcorn. You see how much they've, in fact, Israel has been much more neutral on Ukraine, Russia than even India has been. And they're a much closer US ally.
Next question, please. Kapil Gund wants to know, question to both of you. I had to choose one car model to drive for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? It
Hmm.
is Mercedes E-Class for me. What about you?
Fiat Cinquecento.
Okay, I would take Tesla any day because it's become so much easier to drive a car using Tesla. I mean, it does a lot of things for you automatically, and that kind of takes your pressure off of having to look at the road all the time, be at the height of your senses. One could even say that you can kick back, but they require you to do a few little things, but they can actually auto drive the car. That software I've been using on my cars is very, very good, very good, very good. I mean,
So what?
the
Which Tesla do you have?
I have a bunch of I have the S100 series, I have the S60 series, and I also have the M3, which is, see, the way he designed it, right? It's SEXY. That
Yes,
was
I
the
know.
right. So the E somebody had taken, so he turned it to 3. So that is Model 3. So I have driven the S.
Oh,
I have done the Model 3. I have not done X. Was the Roadster, was the sports car that they
okay.
initially done it, and the Y is
Mm,
the one that is family car like an SUV where the wings open
mm.
up like this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm planning on driving. This time I didn't rent a car when I was in Italy, but I wanted to rent. They didn't have. I wanted to rent the I love the Cinquecento, which is to say the 500. But I wanted to rent the electric Cinquecento, which hadn't come on the rental market when I was there yet.
I'm buying it for the software, by the way. It's all great, everything
I
else,
know,
but the
but for me,
software is
it's
coming.
see, for me, a car is so much more than the software, right? It's the feel that you get, the interior. See, I could never be happy in a Tesla in spite of all the technology. It's too bland an interior form. I need personality, and I think like the Fiat really, especially the Cinquecento, really offers that.
All right, guys. Hardik Thanki wants to know Canada has become biggest point for Chinese money laundering. Khalistan is becoming prominent gangsters, and many radical Islamists entering the country. What future holds for Canada?
Ooh. I don't know about Chinese money laundering, but Khalistanis, yes. Pakistani money laundering, yes. The future holds what any government. Look, the what Justin Trudeau has done is he's skewed it in favor of increasing immigration, and immigration from the worst possible countries, unlike Australia, which focuses on skilled immigration. Canada wants immigration from a certain not entirely psychologically or mentally stable set of people who will always be dependent on and vote for Labour. And you know where this leads. It's just down, 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 down. So we're seeing a slow, steady decline. It's exactly what we're going to see in America as well.
So true. Malyaban Bhattacharya, why are Russians so hostile towards Japanese, Israelis, and Taiwanese? I've seen a lot of comments of Russians asking China to defeat Taiwan and Japan.
Quite the contrary. It's the Japanese and the Taiwanese who are hostile to the Russians. The Israelis have kept absolutely quiet about all of this. Huh? And Israel and Russia have great intelligence cooperation, and the biggest thing preventing the Russians from giving Iranians a free hand to do what they want is Israeli pressure in Moscow. Number one. Okay. Number two, Japan and Russia still have an unresolved war. Technically, till about
Kurila
10 years back
Islands.
when they signed a treaty of peace, yeah, they were technically at war. There was a ceasefire between Japan and the USSR. There was no peace treaty between Japan and the USSR. So technically, they were at war. It was an armistice. Taiwan is a different matter. Taiwan, Russia generally tends to ignore because they were never hostile. They ignored Taiwan for most part because communist unity and People's Republic of China. In spite of all the fighting and everything, there's always communist unity and things like that. This time, the Taiwanese proactively imposed sanctions on Russia because they fell for the argument that unless you stand up for Ukraine, you cannot stand up for Taiwan if China chooses to reunite. So it was just one of those things where the Russians have said, okay, you're going to spite us, we're going to spite you. Japan had no reason to, but Japan did. And they still have a simmering dispute. In fact, Japan has exacerbated the dispute. They now claim the entire Kuril Islands. And all Japanese maps now have to show them as Japanese.
Next question, please. Ishan Sharma wants to know, what do you see the future of Bihar? Will JDU and BJP go their separate ways? Will presidential rule take place or will something else happen?
I suspect JDU and BJP will go separate ways, but I also suspect the BJP will try to break the JDU. And I think they're on fairly firm ground trying to do that. And will it be presidential rule? Possibly. Because, if you look at the Bihar Assembly right now, Tejashwi has 75 seats and BJP has some similar number. So just Tejashwi plus Nitish is not enough. They need the Congress to be the third leg. The question is, will Nitish Kumar agree to give up the chief ministership? That's the big question. I would say the JDU and BJP will break up the moment Nitish Kumar agrees to give up the chief ministership.
All right. Next question, please. Bhargava Pota Kumari wants to know, can I at 36 years change my career to psychology or suggest any? Would it help a burnout engineer in immigration to Australia/Europe?
Yeah, you can do it if you shift to Australia or Canada or America. Not so much Europe. Midlife career changes are quite tough in Europe. But if you do Canada, Australia, America, yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can change mid-career, no problem.
Ritu Patil wants to know, have you heard of the younger Dryas impact theory? It dates human civilization back 12,000 years rather than 5,000 years. What do you think of it? Credibility?
No, Ritu, I have not heard of this, but let me just quickly do a Google search and see what it says, because I probably would have heard of it in some other form. Younger Dryas impact theory. Okay. Some scientists have proposed that this event triggered extensive biomass burning, a brief impact winter, meteor airbursts. Okay. Species, megafauna, and all. Sorry, I'm not seeing where it takes human civilization back 12,000 rather than 5,000 years. The only thing I see mentioned out here is the Clovis culture, but the Clovis culture was already about 12,000 years old. There's no dispute about Clovis culture being about 12,000 years old. So I don't know what exactly you're talking about, Ritu, because we know for a fact that a lot of civilization can possibly date back to as old as 20,000 years old. I've read certain papers on Gökbeli Tepe, which seem to suggest that the oldest ruins at Gökbeli Tepe are in fact 20,000 years old. 12,000 is where most of the huge monuments are built. But I 5,000 is quite an early, I wasn't.
Next question, please. Karthikeyan wants to know, will Taiwan face better prospect than Ukraine if attacked by the CCP? Will US intervene directly, at least this time, instead of indirect support like providing weapons and ammunition?
So Taiwan has lots of things going for it. First, it's an island. Remember, Hitler wasn't able to conquer Britain.
England.
And the English Channel is much
Shorter.
English Channel is much narrower than the Taiwan Straits. Similarly, Kublai Khan and the Mongols couldn't control Japan. They couldn't conquer Japan. The Chinese could never conquer Japan. The Koreans could never conquer Japan. But Britain conquered large parts of France in the 100 Years' War and even before. The last successful invasion of Britain was in 1066, the Norman Conquest. Since then, it's mostly been the English conquering parts of France. Japan, I would say the last successful invasion was the Americans never invaded. Remember, the Japanese just surrendered. The last successful invasion was the Ainu and the modern day ethnic Japanese, which is prehistoric, because the distance from Japan is even greater than the distance from Taiwan. So Taiwan has that one great advantage. The second thing it has is it may have a smaller air force and all of that, but you should remember the sophistication is far, far, far greater, much, much more so than the Chinese military. Much better trained, much better motivated, technology levels much higher, etc., etc., etc. Will America intervene directly? No, but America has a lot more options when you've got a sea thing. Go look at the 1997 Taiwan Straits crisis. The best thing that America can do without intervening directly is put 3 aircraft carriers in different parts of the Taiwan Straits. And what that does is it prevents the Americans will share the IFF codes, that's the interrogator friend or foe, codes with the Taiwanese so that they don't attack American ships, but they will refuse to share it with Chinese ships. The Chinese then face the threat of inadvertently hitting an American vessel, which is war. So Taiwan will have to think of that. So America can use completely non-lethal methods where its intervention will be much, much more impactful than anything they're doing in Ukraine. One of the things that's restricting them in Ukraine is the fact that Ukrainian forces have never trained on Western weapons. Right, so there's a whole set of training and procedures and things, and Western weapons require a whole intelligence complex to go along with it for the targeting and target selection, etc., etc., etc. Here, it's America can give a much higher caliber of weapons to Taiwan, and Taiwan will be able to absorb it much quicker and much more easily. I think one of the biggest drivers of what China is doing is a submarine program, because Taiwan is finally building its own submarines. They're going to build 6 or 8 of them, indigenous design, which should be completed by next year. Let's see. I mean, building a submarine from scratch is quite something. I want to see how the Taiwanese pull it off. But I doubt very much the US will intervene directly. In spite of that, it will be a very decisive intervention.
Amay Tandon wants to know how USSR become a superpower using socialism, but India didn't. Was it foolish of Stalin to trust an openly anti-communist Hitler?
See, the USSR, Lenin had this famous line, communism is Marxism plus electricity. So the first thing that Lenin and Stalin did was forcible industrialization. Through different means, including genocide, they forcibly industrialized everything. And when money doesn't matter, you can build things out of thin air. When you make money irrelevant in the scheme of things, everybody has to contribute what they can. You can get the iron, steel, bricks, labor, cement, glass, whatever, to build your factories, and you build. So you remove money out of the equation. It's one of the industrialized. So they industrialized. And the moment you industrialize in those days, today it's much more complex to industrialize. In those days, it was just kinetic manufacturing industrialization, which was relatively easy to do. We failed even at that, which shows you how incompetent we are. But they could do it, and they did it, and they became a superpower. They were helped by the fact that at this time, because of the Treaty of Versailles, there were extremely harsh restrictions on Germany. So Germany was cheating on all the military restrictions and things like that. And they used to do all their military and industrial testing because all of Germany's patents were seized. So they used to do all their military and civil testing in Russia. And what happened there was the Russians got their hands on a lot of German technology. So it was technology plus the lack of a need of money, plus infinite resources. So they became a superpower very quickly. Of course, there were still things that they could not. So, for example, they never mastered German quality completely. But you didn't need that much quality. It was still pretty damn useful. Like Stalin always used to say, there's a quantity has a quality all of its own. So it was very successful in that sense because of the sheer grit and determination that you put into it. And was it foolish of Stalin to trust? Who told you Stalin trusted Hitler? Stalin never trusted Hitler. Stalin was sure that Hitler was going to attack. He just did not believe that Hitler was going to attack at that particular time.
The Safari Traveler wants to know, can USA, Saudi Arabia, UAE hold back Pakistan from jumping into a future war between China and India due to Pakistan economic aid dependency from them?
Oh, why? Yeah, like, what verbose questions here? 1 second. Uh, Very speculative, hypothetical, boss. I told you, don't ask me all these weird hypothetical questions, no? Why do you think there's going to be a war between China and India? Or that it's going to be an unrestricted war? Very hypothetical. I'm not going to answer this.
Sid Dave wants to know, Abhijit Bhaiya, we are thankful to you for defending Hindus. Why is government not invested in a strong relationship with Hindus in Guyana, Suriname, and Fiji?
See, their idea of Hindus in Guyana, Suriname, and Fiji is singing bhajans. They invest in singing bhajans. The question is one of having a global vision, which the BJP simply does not have. They're a product of their own economic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. And they think Hindu unity is bolstered by getting who was it, the Surinamese or the Guyanese foreign minister to come to that event that was held on the Yamuna banks and sing the Hanuman Chalisa, was it? And that's
You're
that.
talking about World Culture Festival of Sri Sri?
Was it? Yeah. And
Yeah,
some
WCF.
Guyanese or Surinamese minister came and sang the
Hmm.
Ramcharitmanas, no? Was it the
I think
Ramcharitmanas
so.
or Hanuman
Yeah,
Chalisa? Yeah.
I've been to Trinidad and Tobago. There's a very big Hindu community there also. They are very ritualistic. They do adhere to all our culture and customs. They do sing bhajans, but there's much more to it than just that.
But you know
Um,
what I found in Guyana and
mhm.
Suriname, which really surprised me, was how they really put caste behind them. They've actually overcome caste, which I
Yes, yes.
found was fascinating.
Most came in 1740s. That's when there was a wave of migration away from like UP and Bihar into these countries for sugar plantations, and many of them even today speak Hindi, which is very very nice. I mean, you're talking seventh, eighth generation now, and they still can speak Hindi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But well, it's some kind of Hindi.
yeah. You समझ सकते हैं. I mean, you
You can
understand. Yeah,
understand it,
yeah.
and their food is very different from ours. Uh, but for me, it was really caste, the way they've managed to systemically overcome the banality of it. But other than that, no. I mean, you tell me also, to be fair to the government, what do you think Guyana, Suriname, and Fiji can pull off for you? There isn't even a proper outreach to Hindus in California or New York or New Jersey. In countries where you think they'll ever care? They're just quite happy with bhajan kirtan and the dramas that California Hindus. Even California Hindus, there's vicious infighting, no, Shri? There's like five,
There
six
is,
different groups, all of whom hate each other. This is
well,
why
it's okay.
I avoid invitations to come to California, because if I go to one, they'll be like, "Oh, why are you going to that? That fellow's a fraud. This fellow's a financial fraud. That fellow cheated my wife's nephew's son's aunt's 13th cousin." And then the 13th cousin will call me up and say, "Oh, you know, this bugger, he did this." Appa, it's a snake pit. And the Indian embassy is particularly useless in managing all of this and dealing with it. Even in Canada, they're completely useless at protecting Sikhs from radicalization and things like that. Even though the Khalistanis are a minority, thanks to inaction by the Indian consulate out there, all the Indian ambassadors there are only interested in lining up their own retirement gigs. with the notable exception of our last ambassador, Ajay Bisaria, who is a consummate professional. But one individual can't do much when the entire system is rotten. So why do you think they will even look at Guyana, Suriname, Fiji? What is the visibility? Zero. What is the fame that they can get? Zero.
From what little I know, let me just add to what you said. See, I spent a whole day with a very good friend of mine, 𝗤𝙬 Sriram, in Trinidad and Tobago, and he was a banker who had spent a lot of time in banking industry, rose to very high levels. He knows the political structure of Trinidad and Tobago. There's an Indian group that used to be like Maharaj was, I think, the prime minister for some time, and it's been going back and forth. The native Tobago population and
was
Indian.
that they're the Badri Maharajas? No, I think they're Fiji. No,
No. I think you're
the
talking
Badri
about
Maharajas.
Keshav Maharaj from Fiji. Keshav Maharaj was
No,
Fiji.
the Badri Maharaj family is very famous.
Could be.
I think.
So what he told me, and he said that Trinidad and Tobago was populated for growing sugarcane. Today, his was the last sugarcane plant in the entire Trinidad. Tobago is a small island. Trinidad is the mainland. He said, mine is the only sugarcane farm and processing plant. Nobody else is there. Everybody has given up. So Trinidad and Tobago doesn't have really anything other than a little bit of tourism and essentially freebies, because many of them are using, banking industry to make some quick asset money and things like that. Tourism is their main business. And when COVID struck, I'm sure that has given a body blow.
So yeah, Badri Maharaj. Badri Maharaj family, very famous in Fiji. So I don't know why all the famous families in Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad, and but I think it was the same Badri Maharaj family that was also part of this thing. They were. I was reading somewhere they had a very illustrious career. One of them, who was a complete idiot, also became a NDTV correspondent. Some fellow called Sanjay Badri Maharaj, descendant of that family. Of course, he's a complete idiot. That's a different matter. But NDTV should tell you a lot. But that Badri Maharaj family was a very famous family.
All right. I think we're done to 90 minutes. This is the last question. I have an appointment.
Yes.
Sorry.
India, no. So India cannot help Alex Jones. What has Alex Jones ever done for India? Nothing. So we shouldn't help people who have done nothing for us. Thank you very much. Alex Jones can pay his own, what was it? That punitive damages, 48 million or 45 million or whatever he's been ordered to pay. Right. Thank you very much. Zero interest.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. And viewers, I hope you enjoyed our program. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And now we are racing towards a 500,000 mark. We did about 100,000. We are at 100,000 subscribers, mota in last 18 months. And I want to do that doubling now. So with your help, we can reach there. And thanks once again, Abhijit. You are one of those people who you help out. And we are going to request you to address some unfinished questions from today's and the previous episode. Hopefully you have some time during the next few days. We can work it out and we'll get those things done. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Vetrivel.
Vetrivel Veeravel.